Welcome back, everybody. As we journey through the scriptures, we are in First Timothy chapter 3, and being able to see how it's a letter from Paul to Timothy, a mentor to a mentee, a seminary professor to a pastor, as what we get to see here. He is just giving these instructions that Timothy is in Ephesus, being able to kind of oversee the church, manage the church, but pastor the church right there in Ephesus, which was a really tough place. And so one of those were kind of seen in First Timothy chapter 2, that there was some disorientation, as we would see within the church there, of people domineering other people, false teachings, and people wanting to get their own way rather than the way of Christ. And that's just humanistic. That's just the human way, as people are together with other people. But he said, here's the foundation. Within the church, Timothy, make sure that this is the foundation, that you're praying together, that you're intercessing together, that you are actually, it's a place of thanksgiving. It's a place of peace. But more importantly, and I think the overall priority is that it's a place of oneness, and oneness in Christ. And so, as he has said that in 1 Timothy 1 and 2, he's continuing on in his letter in this instruction of being able to say, how do you maintain that? How do you maintain that foundation? How do you keep your eyes fixed on that foundation? Well, Timothy, there is people within the church that you're going to be able to raise up to be able to have oversight of that. They're called overseers, or as the Greek would say here, elders within the church. And there's certain qualifications, there's certain instructions for these elders, but not just elders, also deacons. And so elders are these overseers, along with, as we would have it in our language now, it's like the pastors and the elders. So within our church, yes, I'm a pastor, but I also have my right-hand men, which are those elders of the pastoral office, to be able to look and have oversight of teaching and preaching, being able to have oversight of the spiritual walk of the congregation, as for the foundation of prayer and the foundation of the gospel, is make sure that that is oversight, that it is foundational in the center of what we do. But then there's also deacons, as we get to see in church, and those are those who serve, deacons and deaconesses, and being able to see that those are the ones who serve in the church, make sure that things are what they are in the community. The family is felt a warm feeling towards serving one another, not just oversight. And so that's what Paul is saying in 1 Timothy chapter 3, that it's more than just one person. Thanks be to God. It's more than just one pastor being able to do the work of the church. No, it takes the church and the family of the church to do this together. Pastors and elders and deacons and deaconesses, and lay leadership, people just serving one another, so that we have oneness in Christ, is what he's getting to. So 1 Timothy chapter 3, he gives those instructions for overseers and deacons, elders and deacons. And here we go, verse 1. Here's a trustworthy saying: if anyone sets his heart on being an overseer, an elder, he desires a noble task. Now the overseer must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, temperate, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not given to drunkenness, not violent but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. He must manage his own family well and see that his children obey him with proper respect. Because, as Paul would say, this just makes sense, verse 5, if anyone does not know how to manage his own family, how can he take care of God's church? And I just really love how Paul does this in a lot of his letters. He speaks towards the home and the family, and how you manage your family, how you have respect from your family, how you lead your family, within a husband and wife. But then he always brings it into the church, of being able to say, this is a family as well. And so how do you manage? How do you actually foundationally speak to? How do you lead within the church as well? Because it's going to be people leading within the church, God as our head, Jesus as our cornerstone. But here we see a family. And so how do you walk as a household here? And he's saying, if you don't have that within your small household, how are you going to have it within the large household of God? Which makes total sense. He says, verse 6, he must not be a recent convert, or he may become conceited and fall under the same judgment as the devil. easily swayed, right? Conceited, that he's having this position because he wants to be noticed within the congregation. No, 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 that's not what an elder or an overseer should be about. It is about Christ. And so within this, he can become conceited. He can become easily swayed if he's a recent convert. So be careful of that. Verse 7, he must also have a good reputation with outsiders so that he will not fall into disgrace and into the devil's trap, that he's not going to be swayed once again from how he's viewed, how he's perceived from the outside, and what the church is going to be viewed as well. Then he goes into deacons. It says, verse 8, deacons likewise are to be men worthy of respect, sincere, not indulging in much wine, and not pursuing dishonest gain. They must keep hold of the deep truths of the faith with a clear conscience. They must first be tested, and then, if there is nothing against them, let them serve as deacons. We get to see this in Acts chapter 6 within the early church, of those who were serving at the tables, serving the church in that kind of way. To what? Free up the overseers, to free up the elders to be able to do the work of the preaching and teaching, and being able to see the gospel at work. These were underlying people to be able to serve, to free up the foundational teaching in the church. It says in verse 11, in the same way, their wives are to be women worthy of respect, not malicious talkers, but temperate and trustworthy in everything. And so, as we get to see here, husband and wife work within the church, being able to say the roles within the church, and being able to see the design of God, being able to say people should be faithful. I think that's interesting that Paul puts that here in this letter, but he says, yeah, overseer, deacon, wives, people of the church, you should be faithful. You should be faithful to God, not selfish, but rather selfless in our work in the church. Verse 12, a deacon must be a husband, but of one wife, and must manage his children and his household well. Those who have served well gain an excellent standing and great assurance in their faith in Christ Jesus. Paul says, although I hope to come to you soon, I'm writing you these instructions so that, if I am delayed, you will know how people ought to conduct themselves in God's household, which is the church of the living God, the pillar and foundation of the truth. Beyond all question, the mystery of godliness is great. And he just kind of gives us the mystery of the godliness, but not so much of a mystery is Jesus Christ. And it says, he appeared in a body, was vindicated by the Spirit, was seen by angels, was preached among the nations, was believed on in the world, was taken up in glory. Paul, once again, coming back to the foundations of what the church should be about. Yes, faithfulness of the people within the church, but the church is always striving, always about the oneness in Christ, the faithfulness in Christ, and frankly, the proclamation of Christ, that he gave up heaven to become here on earth, to be able to bring about the Father's glory and be able to be preached among the nations. And here we are as a church still, being able to say, yes, faithful people, but really just encouraged and ministered to by the faithfulness of Christ. May you this day be ministered by the faithfulness of Christ, so that you can be faithful, not within the church, but even to the outsiders, even to the places that you go today, that Christ be proclaimed in all that you say and all that you do. Have a blessed day. Jesus loves you.